On Saturday, dozens of people took to the streets in cities across the country. Sudanese are demanding the restoration of a civilian-led government after a military takeover on Monday. Protesters carried Sudanese flags and chanted against the military leadership. They are also demanding the release of senior political figures from detention. Naba Mohideen has the latest from Khartoum.
The protest continues in the Sudanese capital and other states all around the country. Right now, there is a reported riot in Omdurman, Bahri, and Khartoum. The bridges are still blocked by the military and some security forces, and also the access to Khartoum is blocked by the military, by heavy vehicles also. There is reported casualties. Over 17 protesters are reported they were fired by live ammunition and tear gas. And the Sudanese Doctors Committee confirmed the killing of 2 protesters. There is violence also in Tuti Island, which is close to the presidential palace. The protesters were dispersed by tear gas and live ammunition too. There is heavy deployment of military and security forces all around the country, especially around the military headquarters. The internet and phone call signals are still in a blackout. Observers think the protests will likely continue because of the violence and because of the killings of the protesters. We will likely witness negotiations between the civilians and military generals because of the international pressure on the generals. We will likely see a new scene just like 2019 talks between the generals and civilians to share the power again, but with new conditions. And in this time, the pressure of the street is bigger because after the military takeover, the protesters are refusing any compromisement, and they don't want the political parties to be involved again in the scene or the military generals. So we'll probably see some calls calling for the Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok to be appointed again as a Prime Minister and to appoint a technocratic government away from the political parties and away from the rebel groups that signed the peace agreement.
Well, there is a heavy deployment of security forces in the capital, Khartoum. The United Nations and the United States have urged Sudan's top military generals to show restraint and avoid violent confrontations. The demonstrations are likely to increase pressure on the military generals who already face mounting condemnation from Western countries and the African Union. Well, joining me now from Cairo is Dr. Nabil Negm El-Din. He is an independent researcher and author of international politics. Doctor, I'll begin by asking you, what are your thoughts about Saturday's widespread protests in Sudan and what they signify?
In fact, what's going on in the capital Khartoum this morning and the other almost 25 cities of Sudanese states is telling us one thing. The people of Sudan are not gonna accept a military regime in Khartoum again. In addition to that, there is almost marches all over the world in 50 international states, starting from Sydney to Washington. Sudanese people inside Sudan and outside are fed up of military coups. I'd like to let you know that what Mr. Burhan has made last Monday was totally a jump in the dark, and he has got no support whatsoever from the international power centers, and Sudan now in a very quite sensitive moment.
And Doctor, how worried then should the countries bordering Sudan be with regards to developments in that country then?
What's going on in Sudan at large and in Khartoum has got its repercussions all over the borders, west, north, and east, because Sudan is a multiracial state, and you find Sudanese people in the west has got some over the borders links with Chad, and you've got some Sudanese people in the east have got some links with the western of Ethiopia. In fact, what's going on in Sudan is going to affect the neighboring countries. Cairo, for example, is always caring for what's going on in Sudan, and it is considered to be a very crucial part of the Egyptian national security.
I suppose the question remains, Doctor, then what should the military authorities in Sudan do to then prevent escalations of tensions in the country?
The military establishment has got a clear warning from Washington, from the United Nations, from Lebanon, Paris. You are under our supervision. We are watching your actions against the peaceful marches in Sudan. And I don't think the military establishment in Sudan or in Khartoum will ignore such clear warnings. And on the other hand, they have to go back to that agreement which has been signed 2019 between the civil camp and the military camp. The transitional period in Khartoum was supposed to hand over power after 2 years to a civilian government. And that transitional period, which is consisted of military and civilian figures, was supposed to establish and pave the way to democracy in Sudan. So the military figures, and specifically Mr. Burhan, has got to reconsider his stance, and he has got to realize that marches in the streets of Sudan, all over 50 or 25 cities, will tell him one thing: no going back.
All right, Doctor, thank you very much for speaking to us on Africa Live. Dr. Nabil Negm El Din, independent researcher, joining us live there from Cairo.